ChaseGeiser.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Guess Who's Bak. I am your host this evening, Chase Geiser. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you, as is always the case. Of course, I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Steven Bak, and we are going to be breaking down all of the latest news tonight, including RIP Lindsey Graham, the latest developments as far as it pertains to Iran, as well as a follow-up synopsis analysis of everything that we learned in the preliminary hearing of Charlie Kirk's murder/assassination, whatever you want to call it. And Lindsey Graham and I go way back. I've not been a big fan of Lindsey Graham ever, basically because he's been in love with every single war that we've ever been in, especially since the war on terror. In fact, if you look on the wall in his office, there is a piece of legislation with the pen from George W. Bush. And this legislation pertains to some law that Lindsey Graham sponsored or was a proponent of that enabled and empowered the government of the United States of America to engage in torture or enhanced interrogation techniques under the last law. This is somebody that loved the war in Afghanistan, somebody who loved the war in Iraq, somebody who loved the war in Ukraine, somebody who loved the wars with Iran, somebody who loved the Patriot Act, and basically everything that we have grown to despise about the establishment GOP. Now, I'm a right-wing person. I'm a conservative person. I believe in the Constitution. I am anything but a leftist. But something that we've come to discover over the course of the last several years especially is that there's little difference between the establishment GOP and the leftist Democratic Party. They pass the same laws. They pass the same budgets. They act like they're opposed to one another in rhetoric only to connect, collaborate, and conspire together behind closed doors. They are all part of the same deep state apparatus controlled largely by our intelligence community. And I've seen a lot of people come out and say how poor of character one must be to celebrate the fact that Lindsey Graham is dead. And of course, I didn't want him to die. I didn't want him to have a heart attack. I didn't want him to get assassinated. I didn't want Charlie Kirk to get assassinated. I just wanted him to be eradicated from the halls of our political institutions by legitimate means which seemingly we were incapable of executing, especially given the results of the last primary election in which he won because of the support of the President of the United States as well as AIPAC. Despite the fact that there was a fairly good candidate, as I understand it, who was running against him that was not an Israel First candidate, that was not a war hawk. But Lindsey Graham, alas, was unable to be removed from the halls of power by legal political methods. And politically speaking, it's fortunate that he's no longer with us. I'm sorry that he died. I'm sorry for his loved ones, but I am celebrating the fact that this man is no longer able to hold office at the highest levels of our nation. Obviously, it's in poor taste to celebrate the death of any person, regardless of whether they're an antagonist, a protagonist, evil, or good. But it is inherently convenient that Lindsey Graham is no longer with us. And frankly, one thing that came to mind as I saw Lindsey Graham's death across my news feed was something that Elon Musk has said at least once. I believe he said it repeatedly. But when faced with questions pertaining to this technocratic push to extend the lives of the elites, this push to combat aging, conquer all disease in a way that seems like something from the movie Elysium with Matt Damon, where the elites would at least have access to this healthcare and this technology that would allow them to live decades upon decades longer than the average working class person. When Elon Musk was faced with a question about this conundrum, he said it's good that people die because it's the only way that old or bad ideas go away. And though I'm not happy that Lindsey Graham met an untimely death, he was in his early 70s. I'm not happy that he had a heart attack. I'm sure that his sister is heartbroken and his family is heartbroken. His friends are heartbroken. Elon Musk was proven right in that the only way it seems that we were able to get his political philosophy out of power in the particular seat that he filled was to see his heart stop beating. And again, I don't want to celebrate this or rub it in. And yes, I've made fun of the fact that he was obviously a closet homosexual. And yes, I've made fun of the fact that he always wanted boots on the ground. And we'll continue to make fun of him. But make no mistake, this is not a celebration of a man's death. This is a celebration of our civilization's evolution into a more enlightened political philosophy. Now, As far as the SAVE Act is concerned, one could say, oh, he was the biggest proponent along with Cotton of the SAVE Act. But we know from all analysis prior to the death of Lindsey Graham that the SAVE Act was a long shot, to say the least, probably something that was never going to happen. And given that it was such a long shot, that it still is such a long shot, to support it is not necessarily something of consequence. Not unless there's actually a chance in hell that it passes. And so to celebrate Lindsey Graham for his support of the SAVE Act is really just an example of him exploiting the fact that something that he probably did oppose was never going to pass ever. And so he was able to feign his support for it and point the finger in another direction. But from Colombia, Darlene Graham Nordone, the younger sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham and a longtime South Carolina state official with no prior elected experience, was appointed Monday to serve out the remainder of Lindsey Graham's U.S. Senate term following his sudden death. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster named Nordone, 62, hours after President Donald Trump publicly recommended her as a tribute to the senator, who died Saturday at age 71 from an aortic dissection associated with arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Quote, I recommend to Governor Henry McMaster, Lindsey Graham's wonderful sister, Darlene, to serve as interim senator from the great state of South Carolina, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Quote, this would be a fabulous tribute to Lindsey, who loved her dearly, end quote. McMaster announced the appointment at an emotional State House news conference, describing it as a way for Nordone to continue her brother's work. Quote, Lindsey took care of his little sister and years long departed. It's my honor to ask his little sister Darlene Graham to finish his work for him now, he said. Nordone, who is expected to be sworn in Wednesday, will serve until early January 2027, when the winner of the November special election takes office. She would become South Carolina's first female senator. Lindsey has always been there for me, and now I will be there for him, Nordone said at the announcement. It is such a privilege to finish some of his important work. The appointment followed swift endorsements from Trump and Senator Tim Scott, Republican of South Carolina, who praised her deep understanding of her brother's commitment to family, state, and country. Senate Majority Leader John Thune also signaled support, calling it a way to extend Graham's legacy. Nordone and Graham shared an exceptionally close relationship shaped by tragedy. Their parents, Millie Graham, who died of Hodgkin's lymphoma in 1976, and F.J. Graham, who suffered a fatal heart attack 15 months later, passed away when Graham was in college at the University of South Carolina and Nordone was just 13 years old. Graham, then 22, became her legal guardian and later formally adopted her so she could receive military benefits after he joined the Air Force. And it goes on and on and on. So here we are in a situation where this seat is finally once again contested. We've got a little bit of nepotism taking place right now. And people say that he died under mysterious circumstances. I'm going to allow Bak to get into that. It seems to me reasonable that Lindsey Graham was unhealthy, that he had this cardiovascular condition, that he truly did just coincidentally die. But we'll dive into this and unpack it. But make no mistake, I'm glad that his political philosophy no longer inhabits that Senate seat. I guess it does until January, so long as his sister maintains her hold of that seat. But it was time for us, and it is time for us to move on. And this is not just an example of one lone senator passing on. This is actually indicative of a massive trend that is happening right now within the Grand Old Party, right now within the conservative movement, where this neoconservative boomer philosophy, the Israel first philosophy, the war anytime philosophy, the America is perfect and the intelligence community is perfect and we're the good guys, so we should police the world philosophy, it's aging out. It is slowly dying itself of heart failure, all the diseases and reasons that boomers are dying and aging out and retiring. And what's going to be left is a party composed of the Fuenteses, the Ian Carrolls, the Chase Geisers, the Steven Baks, the Alex Joneses, the Harrison Smiths, the Candace Owenses, this alternative right, which has been fighting tooth and nail for a more just, more reasonable party for years and years and years. And finally, once this antiquated gerontocracy ages out, all that will be left will be this new movement. So it's up to us over the course of the next 4 to 6 to 8 years to define what the party will be, so that when we have all of the power...
Adult and not speak ill of the dead, because my mother raised me better than that. But obviously, all of us America First people, I feel comfortable speaking for all of us, are relieved that this type of warmongering philosophy has been pushed out of the halls of Congress and Senate by the Lord himself. So that's my take on that. There will be people that miss him. I'm sure he has positively impacted some lives, but he's by far. How many people went home in a casket because of this man?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot were tortured because of him. A lot of Americans were illegally spied on because of him.
How many people are missing limbs? Missing a psyche, you know? So, that being said, rest in peace, Ladybug. I hope you found Jesus. And that's my take on it.
Asian, and was here with our people when it was most needed.
What of the rumors that he died in Ukraine?
All right, my favorite part. Let's get into the conspiracies. The write-up here, let me give you a little background on this guy. We've played some of his interviews before. He's one of the main people going out and saying Iran's had nukes, already has nukes, and has had them for a long time. Larry Johnson, former CIA intelligence analyst or officer, publicly claimed that Pentagon generals were saying Graham died in Kyiv. He suggested the official timeline and location might not fit a preferred narrative, especially after Russian strikes on the facility Graham had just visited. If you saw those pictures that were floating around the media, he was holding a drone, you know, and then allegedly the hotel that a lot of the staffers were staying at from the...
and what's the source that he may have died in Ukraine?
He's saying Pentagon generals are the source.
His direct source. Pentagon generals have reached out to him.
That's his claim.
And Zelensky is confirmed to have been in a building that was later struck.
Yes.
But Trump is saying that he spoke to him after he returned.
Well, I don't know if Zelensky was in the building at the time, but they were both meeting at the drone factory.
Right, he was at least in that building.
Correct.
During his trip, and it was later struck.
So there was a drone factory that they had both visited?
So in the event that he was killed in Ukraine in a strike, Trump is participating in the cover-up of that fact because Trump is saying that he spoke to him after he returned to the United States.
Well, it would be the whole government at large engaging in this cover-up because what would this implicate? This would implicate no one is safe in Congress, in the Senate, all the way up to the executive level.
Well, and there would be calls for direct war with Russia if Russia had, engaged in a strike that resulted in the death of a senator.
Mm-hmm. So, if we want to, should we play the clip and so we can see it in his own words?
Excuse me.
Quick shout out to Mr. C. Thank you very much for the super chat.
Explosions in Kyiv is something he's probably never heard before.
But why would they lie about that? Why would they?
Why do they lie about anything? I mean, show me. We just talked about how they're lying about the Strait of Hormuz being open.
Yeah, but that's
one more lie.
Yeah, but I'm saying usually there's a reason to lie. You want to lie to make it seem you're winning.
Anything else that he's accurately called in the past? I'm not familiar with him.
I mean, he's just started making the media rounds with the whole Iran has nukes narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first I've heard of him. We've played a couple of his clips. Now he's popping back up. Mind you, that is RT, and this is anecdotal.
Yeah,
so
why would RT want to advertise the fact that it was involved
thinking
in
the same thing. That's state-sponsored media for Russia.
Right. They don't want to advertise that.
They wouldn't.
It's possible that he was in the strike and either injured or shocked, and that he did make it back to the United States and die later.
That is a possibility, yep. I know when I went to visit that region of the world, there is no functioning airport in Ukraine. You have to take...
but I'm sure that he was flying in and out of military.
Yeah. There could be a private hangar waiting for him. I don't know. And they would make accommodations for someone of his stature. They're not going to put him on a train
for 20 hours, dude. They're not going to put him on a train. He's going to fly straight in. Zelensky's going to have a armed caravan pick him up.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be all sorts of anti-drone deterrent all along the path, everything, Can
you imagine flying him into France? Now you get on a 20-hour train, and then you got to ride by horseback the last 10 miles.
That'd be pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it's not
and
for
Lindsey Graham, being the war hawk he was, that would be an asset Ukraine would throw everything at to protect.
Yeah,
in terms of missile defense, drone defense.
#1 champion.
Yeah. That's where the money is,
I want to see this clip about Darlene Graham, who's allegedly going to be replacing Lindsey.
President Donald Trump has urged South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster to appoint Darlene Graham Nordone, the sister of the late Senator Lindsey Graham, as the state's interim U.S. Senator.
She's 62 years old.
Trump made the recommendation after Graham died over the weekend following an emergency medical episode.
Yeah, me either.
The longtime South Carolina senator was 71 and had previously been diagnosed with arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. In a Truth Social post, Trump called Darlene Graham Nordone, quote, Lindsey's wonderful sister.
Basically, the point is she's going to be Lindsey Graham clone for the next 5 months.
Well, is that set in stone? Because that was a recommendation. It's the governor that makes the interim appointment.
Yeah, I think the governor did it.
He's already done this?
Yeah, let me verify. Please confirm. whether.
Yep, I'll take this time to finish Mr. C's super chat. Sorry, I got cut off by the video. Lindsey is chilling with Glitch McConnell. Hope they brought their sunscreen.
Yeah. So, yes, Darlene Graham Nordone has officially been appointed. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster announced and formalized her appointment on July 13th, 2026, that's today, to fill the U.S. Senate vacancy left by her brother Lindsey Graham's death. She will serve the remainder of the term until January 3rd of 2027. The governor's office issued a formal statement confirming the appointment under South Carolina law. Nordone spoke at the State House press conference accepting the role, and she's scheduled to be sworn in on Wednesday, July 15th. So I believe it's official.
I don't know how this is allowed to happen. How you couldn't have hold a special election. Like, she has no political office experience. Like, what? She just, why don't we just throw my Asian mom in there? Not even from South Carolina. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what the hell's going on here with this is beyond nepotism, dude. Because there'd have to be some degree of experience or grooming for the job or something. This is just, let's throw my nanny in there.
United States. I know Lindsey thought the world of his staff and colleagues, and with their support, I feel confident. I think this is what Lindsey would have wanted.
And shortly before he died, he did say that if anything were to happen to him, he would want his sister to take over TPUSA.
What? Okay. I was like, dude, what?
What about BB Glazing Graham?
Oh, this is hard for me to watch, but I did it for the sake of this show. Uncle Alex played a clip of BB just glazing, vanilla glazed donut, Krispy Kreme on Lindsey Graham.
Do it, I'm against it. When the EU does it, when the UK does it, when Brazil does it, I'm against it. And I'm against it when Republicans are doing this.
And so obviously Lindsey Graham won his primary, I believe, against Mark Lynch. Is that correct?
Yes.
And my understanding about Mark Lynch is that he was truly an America First candidate that did not accept AIPAC money. Is that true?
I didn't dig so much into it because before I had known it, he had lost, and I didn't think he'd have much chance to win. But from what I remember hearing, just some background research here and there, he wasn't fond of AIPAC. But in terms of actually digging into if he's accepted AIPAC money, I didn't research that enough to verify.
And so now his campaign can be resurrected from the dead because there's a chance for him to win, right?
He was the only person who, I think in well over a decade, polled 29% against Lindsey Graham. That was a pretty safe Senate seat for him.
So confirmation here, no, Mark Lynch did not accept AIPAC money or any PAC money in his 2026 Republican primary challenge against Senator Lindsey Graham. FEC filings for Lynch's campaign show $0 in contributions from PACs, committees, or AIPAC/pro-Israel groups. His funding was almost entirely self-funded, over $5 million in candidate loans, plus modest individual donations. Lynch publicly rejected AIPAC funding on multiple occasions. In an October 2025 interview, he stated, no AIPAC funding. AIPAC's a corrupt organization. They've been pushing LGBTQ and DEI agendas. He repeated similar rejections during the campaign, emphasizing he would not take PAC money and would work only for America First priorities. Lindsey Graham has received substantial support from pro-Israel groups over his career, roughly $1 million lifetime from AIPAC, and aligned PACs per Open Secrets and Track AIPAC tracking, which was a point of criticism from Lynch and some primary challengers. Lynch lost the June 9th, 2026 GOP primary to Graham, 29% to Graham's 57%. He has since indicated interest in future runs, but maintained his no PAC stance throughout the 2026 cycle. So now he's got a chance, I presume, to win against the Democratic opposition, right? Is there going to be another internal Republican candidate that runs?
Well, these were, I don't know when their Senate elections would happen. These were the primaries. So I've been really demoralized after Massey and after Lynch losing, after I heard that Graham retained, the primary poll position. So I stopped paying attention.
South Carolina's U.S. Senate race is now a wide open special election scramble following Senator Lindsey Graham's death on July 11, 2026. Current situation, interim appointee. We know that. Darlene's going to take over until January. In the November general election, the seat is up for a full 6-year term. The general election remains scheduled for November 3rd, 2026. Democrats have already nominated Dr. Annie Andrews, a Charleston pediatrician, who will face the Republican nominee. Because Graham had already won the GOP primary in June, South Carolina law triggers a special primary to select a new nominee. The filing period is July 21st through the 28th. Special primary is August 11th. Runoff, if needed, is August 25th. So next month, there's going to be a primary. and the winner will be certified in time for the November ballot. So this is Mark Lynch's opportunity, but they're going to try to run someone against him, whether it's Lindsey Graham's sister or somebody else.
Shout out Leroy45 Long. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Leroy says, may he rest in pieces.
Indeed. Here's a Mark Lynch will run again clip.
Started this race. God put this race on. He's the owner of our campaign. It's the only way we'll get America back great again is bringing God back in his rightful position of first place. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord in Psalm 33.
Amen.
And we started this over 2 years ago. We were blessed, we were prayed over, and we jumped in. And so this is a continuance of that race with the obligation we owe to the loyal voters and the donors and the prayer warriors out there that have been praying a year and a half while we ran this campaign. And God led this charge, and we busted through the walls of Lindsey Graham and ended up with 29%. And nobody's ever done that. And so we've been asked to keep going, and we are. So we're not.
So what's the latest with Mitch McConnell? Why does he come into the conversation?
Okay, so God works in mysterious ways. When all hope's lost, he just wants to know that you're leaning on him. You know, that you've got your eyes to him. And I just think it's so weird that in a 1-2 punch tandem, Mitch McConnell's been hospitalized for roughly a month. His wife fled to some emergency meeting, which they said was long scheduled. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, for a philanthropic visit with the vice premier of China. Oh, you're not CCP agent at all, reporting on how Mitch is doing, your asset in Congress, one of the most powerful men in the Senate, you know, halls of the Senate. So he got hospitalized with what was reported to be a stroke. No one's been able to really get in or out to see him, and he put out some AI slop picture, proof of life, basically, and he's hanging on for dear life until after any sort of primary or election could be done away with, you know? And this leaves a very strange opening for Massey, potentially. Another person who got fucked out of their primary, you know?
So if something were to happen, God forbid, to Mitch McConnell,
Franklin the Turtle,
Massey could run for the Senate instead of the House.
There would have to be a special election, correct? Which would actually put Massey in
Did
even
McConnell
more.
just have a primary?
I don't even think Kentucky for the Senate primary. Does
Yeah,
Senate
I don't know.
even run
They
primaries?
alternate. Yeah, they run primaries. The Senate runs primaries, but they alternate. So not all the Senate races are the same cycle.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that.
When was Mitch McConnell's last primary? Let's look this up. I want to get to the bottom of this because it could be very interesting if all of the greatest supervillains. Okay, so Mitch McConnell's last primary election was on June 23rd, 2020. He announced in February 2025 that he would not seek an 8th term in 2026. So he did not appear on the ballot for May 19th, 2026. So he's not on the ballot. So they might appoint somebody to replace him, but there's not going to be an opportunity for Massey.
Like, what do you like? So if he died, just another.
He's done. Like he's retiring.
Okay, and he's not going to run again, no matter what.
Yeah, he didn't like win a primary like Lindsey Graham did, and then if he dies, it's an
well,
open
he
election.
couldn't even stand to run again.
Yeah, he said he was done.
His life cycle.
He said he was going to retire earlier this year. So I mean, God forbid something were to happen to him. Like I said, I'm not a fan of Mitch McConnell, but I don't want people to die. If something were to happen to him,
like
there's no opening for Massey. Not this cycle. Maybe next time.
You don't think he could run if in a special election it couldn't happen?
In 6 years, but Mitch announced that he was retiring before the primary took place in his district this year. So I don't know who the Republican candidate is in his district, but it's not Mitch.
Okay, I was under the impression if he died during his term,
if he dies during his term, they'll appoint
election.
somebody, just like they appointed for Graham, to fill his vacancy. But the primary election already took place between some other GOP candidate.
So it would just be a special appointment then at that point.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
But here's Mitch McConnell, proof of life.
Tonight, we're also getting an update on former Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell's health after being hospitalized about a month ago. Well, McConnell's office released this photo appearing to show the 84-year-old senator with today's edition of the Washington Post. Well, his office says that he suffered a fall last month that left him briefly unconscious, but doctors have ruled out any serious medical issues. He was also treated for mild pneumonia and is still in recovery. He ends by saying that he plans on finishing the remainder of his term.
There on a pillow. Now, let's keep in mind, nothing of him talking, but he does appear to be sentient, semi, or whatever. His eyes are open. That's what we know, and his wife is there by his side.
I mean,
that's all we can assess from this photo.
Right.
Is that he is alive.
I mean, maybe. I don't, like, also, it's the age of AI.
That's true.
You accept us just to accept a photo at face value. Like,
Okay,
oh,
I
see
get
the
it.
news.
I'm sure he's alive. Whether or not he's competent is another story.
I just see an Asian woman with her pet turtle.
But this pneumonia thing is interesting because when you hear it on the surface, it sounds like, oh, he just had pneumonia, so he had to go to the hospital. But you have to keep in mind that something like 60 to 80% of elderly people who die,
they die of pneumonia, right?
Well, they don't necessarily die of it, but they also have a respiratory infection. So if you're like really old in the nursing home and you die of a stroke or heart failure or whatever, when they do the autopsy, 9 times out of 10, that person also happens to have a respiratory infection because your body's just weakened. You know what I mean? That's why there were so many people who, when they died of natural causes, they also had COVID. That just happened to be the respiratory infection that they had when they died. But when you die of old age, you're way more likely than not to have a respiratory infection at the time of your death, regardless of whether that infection is actually the cause of death.
So comorbidity, essentially.
It's a comorbidity. So like he's got pneumonia, but pneumonia might not be why he was hospitalized. He's just on his way out, happens to have a respiratory infection.
Dude, this is why we need congressional and Senate reform so fucking
It's
bad.
a
He had a stroke
There's got to be age caps
on the fucking floor.
There's got to be age
Dude,
caps.
remember when he froze up and he didn't talk? And then they were like,
oh yeah, I'll never forget it.
Senator, and he's like,
yeah, dude, it was like booting up Windows 98.
Bro, it's like booting up Windows 95, bro.
Yeah, dude. It's like,
getting
is
the
it working?
modem
Is it working?
started.
Control, Alt, Delete, bro.
Dude, oh my God.
Dude, all right, let's watch this.